nerds, what's up? So I know I said I wasn't gonna watch any more Star Wars content after the disaster that was Obi-Wan, but so many people messaged me about Andor that I finally caved when there were only 6 episodes out and started watching the show. Now I've only seen 4 episodes so far, so don't spoil it for me, but I am already in love with this show. I feel like it is so good, finally. But since I started watching Andor the day after I released my Rings of Power video, I couldn't help in my mind constantly be making comparisons to the 2 shows. And one thing I really noticed was how tight and efficient Andor's storytelling was, especially when we compare it to Rings of Power. Andor doesn't seem to waste a single scene. So since I've been talking a lot about how storytelling has been done poorly recently, I want to take the chance to talk about some tight and good examples of characterization and storytelling in particular, even just in the first 4 episodes. Just to let you know, this will contain spoilers for those first 4 episodes, so beware if you haven't seen it yet. So the biggest thing I want to talk about is characterization. In my Rings of Power video, I talked about how I never got a handle on any of the characters or really felt anything for them, even after more than 8 hours of content. Their arcs just never made sense to me, I never understood where they're going, and I didn't understand their history. I was so impressed how immediately I could tell that the opposite was true with Andor. And I think the best way to show this, or the best example, is through our antagonist, Karn. The second Karn comes on the screen, we know who he is. Even the way he was standing told me something about his character. I timed it. In the first 27 seconds, that's right, under 30 seconds, I already knew that he was someone who took his job too seriously, viewed himself too highly. We already had the jab about modifying the uniform and the language he uses to describe the seriousness of the crime. This entire scene only takes 3 minutes, and in it, I already immediately knew that this was the character that was going to be a problem for Cassian. We know it. We know it immediately. And it wasn't even just Karn in that scene. The showrunners were so intelligent about how they framed Karn versus the commander in that scene. By choosing this type of commander, we immediately have a foil for Karn. We see by the way the commander acts, with some extra insight and knowledge and street smarts about the situation. And it contrasts even more with how we see Karn acting, which again informs his character. And Andor, again, never wastes a scene. We're always learning something new about a character or about a plot or about the setting. One of my other favorite scenes with Karn is in episode 2 when he's talking with the troops. At this point, we know that Karn is diehard for his mission, definite villain energy, thinks he's really important and self-righteous. Very like White Cloak energy, I feel like. But then we get this scene where he is an absolutely uninspiring leader. We see the troops not respect him like they respect the other character. It's such a small, short scene, but it informs me so much more about who Karn is. Now I'm thinking he's the character who maybe got teased or maybe got not taken seriously because he's so intense. He wants to be brave and a hero, but doesn't have the charisma or actual bravery to lead. So when he acts like this in episode 3, we already had all the context to know that that was probably how it was going to go down. I just want to say, after episode 2 and those 2 scenes I described, Karn had only had 8 minutes of screen time. And I just felt like I could give you a thesis on who he was, who he is, where he came from, where he was probably going, or possible story arcs that might make sense for him. I literally don't think I could do that for any of the Rings of Power characters, and I even technically knew a lot of them from the books. And I won't go into it in the same way I went into Karn, but the same thing is done for Cassian. I felt like the storytelling is so efficient for him. Immediately in the first few episodes, we know his life story, we know where he's been, we know who he was, and his struggles. But something I do want to mention about Cassian is, did you notice how little fear they have in making our main character, the one we're supposed to root for, deeply flawed? I talk about this a lot in my videos where I discuss the strong female character. You can check those 2 out if you really want to know more of my thoughts, but I'll just say here, that is something I did notice in Rings of Power and other TV shows, is you can sense the fear that the showrunners have that if they give their female leads flaws or they make them messy, that somehow takes away from their strength. Instead, what they're really doing is making cookie cutter characters that people can't identify with and don't seem interesting to follow. And again, Cassian is male, so that may play into that. But I do love, like, there was no fear there to make Cassian a very messy character, but immediately we're on his side because of the way it's framed. Perfection is never gonna make a character relatable or likable. Now, characterization is mostly what I wanted to talk about, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention briefly a few other things I noticed about Andor. I criticized the manufactured emotional moments a lot in the Rings of Power, and so I am so shocked to discover how much I deeply care about people and situations already by the time I hit episode 3. My husband and I actually kind of of laughed at the end of the episode because we were so stressed out the entire episode. We realized we cared so much about what was going on, and there had been so little screen time, and yet we already were very invested in everybody. Again, I think this is a huge testament to their good characterization and their good plotting to already have us so invested in so little time. One thing I'll call out in particular is how I felt when Tim died. This character is sort of annoying. It would be so easy to not care that he died, yet somehow I did. And again, it's down to effective storytelling. I understood Tim's motivations no matter how small of a character he was. I understand how he related to a more important character. I understand how his death affects her and how, in a lot of ways, it's Cassian's fault. This intersection of characterization and plot make the moment meaningful. It has the added benefit of reminding the viewer that all of these people can die anytime. After all, we only know where Cassian ends up. Another quick shout out I want to make is to the lack of mystery boxes so far and how they are not needed to make a compelling show. And in fact, in episode 3, they do the very opposite to, in my opinion, great effect. The example, of course, is from the incredible sound design in episode 3. We see the alarm being raised, and as viewers, we recognize this is a banding together to warn the people, to warn Cassian. It's simple enough, it's been used before. But then there's this amazing moment where his mom is like, "You should be worried when it stops." This is the opposite of a mystery box. This is the show telling viewers exactly what to expect, but just not when. And after that part, my heart started beating literally so fast because there was that rhythm that kind of like makes you anxious, and now you're just like, when's it gonna stop? When's it gonna stop? When's it gonna stop? What's gonna happen? And so the show did the exact opposite. It told us what to expect. And they did it in the perfect way to actually increase tension. Now look, mysteries can work well in shows, so I'm not gonna claim I'm always against them. But the kind of lazy mystery where it relies too much on the mystery itself, like in Rings of Power, and I will also say Wheel of Time, when showrunners rely too much on the mystery box, I think it's just a sloppy way to create tension. Andor proves that you don't need it. And my last small section that I want to mention is how great Andor is doing in the lack of fan service, and I think it is a service to the show. This is a callback to my huge complaints with Obi-Wan as a show, and I think the simplest way I can explain it is this. We all know that if you have a single point, you can make an infinite number of lines from it. Once you put a second dot, your line is chosen, it's set in stone. Shows like Obi-Wan are already dangerous. We've got two extremely set points, and we are trying to put another dot in between. But then when we add extra fan service characters like little Leia and Luke and Anakin, our window for making the show make sense in the context of the wider established lore from movies is extremely difficult. Added to that, all the characters they added in are extremely beloved and extremely known characters. It's gonna be a tough task. Andor, at least so far anyway, is doing a great job of avoiding that issue. The only characters we have that I know of so far that are in other movies are Cassian himself and Mon Mothma. Now, Cassian, he's only got a single dot. He's only got a single point. There are an infinite number of directions we can go with him and not mess at all with Rogue One. And as Rogue One isn't also in the primary sets of movies, which I would call the prequels, originals, and sequels, it's even less of an issue, I feel like. And with Mon Mothma, I think she's a great character that's actually what I would consider real fan service, where if you're a casual viewer of Star Wars, you probably wouldn't recognize the name, but if you've read the books and you've seen the movies a lot, you'll know who she is. But I wouldn't say she's a character that's gonna really mess up a lot because she just wasn't one of those primary characters like Leia, Luke, Anakin, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan, all of which we got in the Obi-Wan show. As only half of the episodes are out for Andor, and I've only seen 4 of them, I've only watched a third of the show, but I'm already blown away with how efficient they are in storytelling. We're back to 40-minute episodes of TV where every moment counts. I feel like I already know so much about the world and the characters, and I'm so invested. I am loving this show. I heard episode 6 is just completely epic, so I'm so excited to get to it. I already thought episode 3 was one of the best episodes of TV I'd seen in a while, so I'm excited where it's going to go. I'm just so relieved we finally have a good Star Wars show. Anyway, tell me if you are enjoying Andor, if you like it as much as I do, if you notice some of the things I talked about, why it is maybe a better show than especially Obi-Wan, but also Rings of Power, just let me know your thoughts. As always, if you like these kind of videos, please like and subscribe. And if you want to see what I'm currently reading, you can check me out on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. I'll see you next time. Bye.